So in 1851, the artist Emanuel Gottlieb Litze created Washington crossing the Delaware. It's an image that has come to define the American Revolution. It's an image that in textbooks across this country represents that social movement for us visually. It's also an image that is inaccurate. The American flag didn't exist then in that form. Washington was 20 years younger. His hair was not gray. But it shows us the power of art. In 1989, Keith Haring painted his unfinished painting. It's a painting that he painted along with Death Equals Silence to show the death around him, the generation of gay men that were killed, or the generation of gay men that died during the AIDS epidemic in the late 80s and early 90s. This image became a symbol for the organization ACT UP to help to visualize their movement and also show that living with HIV and AIDS was not shameful. As a writer, in this current moment, I'm interested in what else can art do. I'm interested in how art comments on the current moment. In 2012, Trayvon Martin was walking home with Skittles and a soft drink. We watched, over the course of a year, a trial that rendered George Zimmerman innocent of any crimes. This caused a backlash, and people went online, Twitter, Facebook, and started hashtagging Black Lives Matter to show the injustice they felt that happened in that trial, but also historically between the justice system and the Black community. So I'm interested in how artists have been responding to this movement. What you see here is Hank Willis Thomas' Two Little Prisoners. It's an image from the 1960s, the civil rights movement. Me and a friend went to Smack Mill in a gallery in New York, and the work is a mirror. You can stand in front of it. We stood in front of this work. It instantly created for us links between the 1960s and the present day, and I think what Thomas was trying to get at with this work is that although these men and women and children are being killed now, there are links, clear links between the historical moment and the present day that we should be aware of. Titus Cooper took a piece of chalk and drew Trayvon Martin's face over Sean Bell's face, over Amadou Diablo's face, over Mike Brown's face, to further illustrate this point that these Black men bonded because they were unarmed and because of the color of their skin, all died at the hands of police and vigilante forces. Cooper also, in this moment around this conversation, went online looking for his father, a federal database, and he searched his father's name, Jerome. 99 men came back in the databases, all committing similar crimes. Cooper decided to make confessional-style paintings of these men's faces. Because if all Black lives matter, Cooper is saying that surely these men's lives matter too. The New York Times recently wrote an article that said 1.5 million Black men are missing from society. They're attached to the penal system in this country. This is Cooper's way of illustrating those stories. This is Cooper's way of perhaps calling for criminal justice reform. And I recently interviewed a young emerging artist, Eric Mack. In his studio, he showed me this work. This work is titled Avante, after Avante Akindo, the young New York City autistic high school student who wandered out of class one day. The whole city were asked to help locate him by his clothing, what he was wearing. On the news, we heard that his shirt was described, his pants. We all were looking for this young high school student. As a response, Mack created this fabric collage to think about Black materiality. How does it feel to be Black in this current moment? And as I've been interviewing artists, Black, white, artists in this country, I've been particularly interested in and noticing, as a writer, how they're using this movement as a point of departure. Jordan Castile told me that Trayvon Martin gave her the urgency to complete this work, this body of work. This body of work is called Visible Man. She went into, at Yale in New Haven, she went into the homes of 14 Black men and painted them in spaces where they felt safe. For her, this work, this body of work, these paintings, is a comment on the fear that African-American men, women, and children carry in their hearts when their engagement with police. And in Chicago right now, my hometown, there's a show, Blood at the Root. It's a show that tracks the violence against Black women. It's not something that we often talk about when we're talking about Black Lives Matter. And so for them, these young Black women artists, this is their way of honoring and bringing attention to names like Sandra Bland. Artists are using this movement in a myriad of ways. This is Rashad Newsom. It's a performance by Rashad Newsom, the performance artist who, at his Brooklyn Museum show, Killer Hills, decided to stage a performance that not only said, rest in peace, Eric Gartner and Mike Brown, but also Isla Nittles, a transgendered African-American woman who also died at the hands of police. There's also possible solutions in work. This is a work by Juliana Huxtable. This is a self-portrait. It's a self-portrait that shows her in a fictional world that she created. One of the points that Black Lives Matter is making is that one of the statistics that Black Lives Matter is trying to raise awareness around and bring visibility to is the fact that transgendered African-American women life expectancy hovers at age 35. For Huxtable, this represents a form of freedom, a place of freedom, where she could perhaps, and women like her, can create spaces that are safe for them, where they can live beyond age 35. And another artist, Chicago-based artist, Alex Johnson, took photographs of his friends and then photoshopped them dead. This work, in particular, brings to mind the recent shooting of the two journalists in Virginia. News outlets deemed that video footage too graphic. But we've been watching for the last several years on video Black bodies being killed. So it brings up the double standard that we perhaps have when we're talking about Black bodies, talking about how we visualize justice. Someone said that it's not enough for us just to assume Black innocence. We must see it. And at the 56th annual Venice Biennale, Adam Pendleton decided to make his artistic gesture a painting where he wrote, "Black Lives Matter." Adam wanted to capture something particular to this moment. And I recently interviewed the artist Nick Cave ahead of his retrospective at Cranbrook Academy. Nick Cave is most famous for making sound suits. They're whimsical, they move. And so I asked him, how did you create the first one? And he told me that it was a sound suit made of twigs because he felt that he was unsafe. He created it in 1993 after Rodney King's beating. At this show, what you're looking at is TM13. TM, the initials of Trayvon Martin. For this artist, Nick Cave has been working for 25 years. This is a full circle moment for him. Just like Washington Crossing to Delaware, there are images created before Black Lives Matter movement that have taken on new meaning. This work, created in 1993 by the artist David Hammonds, has come to represent online on the cover of books Trayvon Martin's hoodie and humanity. For me, this is what art does. It starts conversations. It illustrates the current moment. It encapsulates a movement. And it is the accurate visual record of our time. Thank you.